This is Tim Staten in Stating the Obvious, where we make sense of leadership principles and turn them into relatable everyday actions that could enhance or improve your leadership style. I just want to thank all of you for watching this past week's YouTube live session with Jimmy, where we talked about if leaders were born or they were made, which got me thinking about this week's topic. I always believe that anyone can be anything as long as they're truly passionate about what they're doing and that they apply themselves to get better every single day at it. However, this week, something happened that got to me. It got me on a professional note and on a personal one. This week is a continuation of are leaders made or born, but also how to extend yourself as a leader. I'm going to take a break from the topic and make a couple of announcements this week. First, thank you for those of you who have checked out our podcast. If you haven't subscribed to our podcast, please do so. And if you haven't checked us out on our YouTube website, please go there as well and check us out, subscribe. Make sure you hit that little bell icon so that way, one, you know when we go live, you can interact with us there. And then also, you know when we post new content, and then you can go in there, engage with us and leaving a comment, and then we'll leave one back for you. Also, I'd like to ask if you could please share this podcast with one or two people that you think might like this show. So it does a couple of things when you do that. One, it keeps us on the top of iTunes where people can browse and see us. And two, it gets our ideas out there to other people where they can listen to the show, provide their shared experiences, and then we can all grow together, expanding and growing together. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for doing what you do and listening to this podcast and being a part of this community. We're headed in the right direction, I think, with the show. We're making continued improvements. And I want to hear from you. I want to know what you want to hear about. As leaders, we are always asked to do the right things and the hard things at the same time. This week, I took for granted my career history and the opportunities that I was afforded to fail and to succeed. I had a boss once who said, opportunity is knocking and it's kicking you in the ass at the same time. He usually said this once a junior leader failed to take the initiative on a task. Which got me thinking that I took for granted that other people were afforded the same opportunities and exposure to subjects, topics, experiences, and learn the same way that I learned and had the same career opportunities that I had. This week, the drastic taking for granted smacked me right in the face, and it was almost absurd, and then I had to take a step back. So let me give you a little story about this week. So I had a junior leader who was faced by a series of fears. He had a fear of public speaking, a fear of asking for help, a fear of not properly preparing, and he had a tug between family expectations and work expectations that clashed. So for anybody who can, when you start thinking about this and you put yourself in that individual's shoes, there's a myriad of things that you could be like, okay, so what's going on with this? Long story, but we're going to get to it because it's really, really important, and it reinforced a very powerful lesson for me this week, as well as that other person this week. So there was what we call an opportunity for someone to get promoted at work. And what that means is that somebody worked really, really hard. They got the right evaluations. They did what they were supposed to do. And other people recognize that. And when you reach a certain level, certain promotions are very significant. Every promotion is significant, but some take a little bit more requirement. Every promotion is important, but some take a little bit longer to get there. And once you get there, sometimes you have to realize that promotion is, one, not necessarily about that individual. It is about a public recognition about the organization, because it allows people to look at that person and go, wow, if this guy can make it, I want to aspire to be like that guy. Or to go, man, that guy made it? I definitely can make it to that level. So So it's very important to do this right. And sometimes we as leaders do not we take for granted sometimes, I think, these events and what people want versus what's best for the organization. So this person who was getting promoted had asked his leader, said, hey, I would like to get promoted on a certain date, and my kids are going to be there. And so what he didn't tell his leader was that he had his grandmother coming, his mom coming, his dad coming, and his brothers coming. So those key pieces of information were left out. But let's rewind to the middle of the week when I was asking about, hey, you have this thing on Friday, where are we set? Do you have, the right people in places? Did you send out the invitations to let people know they're supposed to be there? Do you have the reception afterwards for the foods and the refreshments and drinks for people? Do you know what you're going to say? Do you have the right things that you're going to say about them? Because it's very important that you do the right things. I mean, his kids are going to be there, so I'm pretty sure if you had your kids there, you would want somebody to say something nice about you. And then I got this deer in the headlights look like, no, I hadn't done any of that. And for me, it was common knowledge that this person at this level in leadership would be able to do that. And through the period of about a 35-minute conversation, I found out that he was never, ever, ever afforded the opportunity to do something like this, where I had done it, hundreds of times, but where this individual hadn't had the opportunity to do it at all. And I took for granted my past experience and said, well, surely because I had done this, he had had the same exact experience, which made me reevaluate, okay, so if he didn't get those experiences and he doesn't know what he's doing, why didn't he ask for help? And so I, quite frankly, I told him, I said, hey, look, I said, if I created an atmosphere where you feel like you can't come talk to me, then I need to know about that so I can fix that. Otherwise, I'm confused on why you didn't ask for help. And he looked at me and he said, hey, look, he was like, I have a fear of asking for help because before in the past in other organizations where I've worked, I got in trouble for asking for help because they expected me to know it. And that just blew my mind. I was like, there's no way you could get in trouble for asking help. So I had to reassure him and said, look, in this organization, at least when we work together, you're not going to get in trouble asking for help. What you will get in trouble for is blindly going forward and doing something knowing that you don't know what you're doing and not trying to do the right thing. You will get in trouble for that. So, but you're not getting in trouble for asking for help. I was like, so what's the other issue? The other issue came down to he didn't know how to properly balance key critical events in his work life versus key critical events in his personal life. So when you take a look at those, and those could apply to anybody at any time at any given moment. So it's not like I'm just singling this person out, because I'm not, because it's applicable to everybody. I find myself in that predicament all the time. I have a special needs son, and there are times where I find myself juggling between things that I have to do for work and things that I should do as a father and things that I should do for his educational benefits and gain as he goes through school. So how do you balance those? So work-life balance is always a struggle, no matter what position you're in, no matter what level you're in, and no matter what organization you're in. I had to take a step back and think about it for a second. And typically, I never, ever, ever would have asked him to come in to do this the day after in his specific situation, except for there was nothing done previous. So he didn't, come and say, hey, here's all the work that I've done. I'm going to pass it over to this peer, and he's going to do it because I have this family conflict. Instead, he let the fear of public speaking and the fear of asking for help get into his way of accurately planning for the event. So I told him, I said, hey, look, I said, this is one key critical event where you're just going to have to figure it out on how you're going to have to manage your work and your family expectations. I said, I don't like to do this, but in this case, we're going to do this. I said, here's why. One, you're afraid of speaking in public. You have to get over that. The only way to get over that is by doing it. And two, you didn't adequately prepare. So I'm not going to have somebody else try to come in and take the blame for something going wrong that you caused. I said, so here's what we are going to do. We are going to sit down. Here's a sequence of events that you're going to have to go over. I also want you to write up what you're going to say. And at first, I got kickback on that because he had this impression and perception that he would be made fun of or he'd be ostracized for reading something in front of other people. And again, that blew my mind. I said, there's no way that he could think this. However, he thought it. And I said, okay, well, let me ask you a question. Anytime you see people on TV doing a speech, they're reading something. You just can't see it. There's a prompt there, cue, whether it's a picture or a symbol, whether it's my, even right now I have a placard that I look at with key talking points of what I need to talk about and things I need to hit. And so it brings you back to the point, which is sometimes when you get in front of people and you're not a very good public speaker and you haven't done it often, you need to read, and that's okay. And I told him, I said, and you could be upfront with people about it. You can say, look, I'm not very good at public speaking. This is a big deal for this individual and his promotion. I don't want to do him injustice or his family injustice by messing it up. So I'm going to read. I said, nobody will say anything about that. There will be a few critical people, but I said, if those people are so hung up over that one thing and they can't see your true intent, forget about them. Who cares? So then he still wasn't, completely bought off on it. So I said, hey, look, when I first joined an organization, I was very, very junior, straight out of college, thought I knew everything. I went and I had a person that I worked with, and he was getting promoted. So I was asked, hey, can you read the citation about all the great things he did and talk about it in front of everybody? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. I didn't read the citation. I didn't rehearse the citation. And I didn't know that there's going to be about 300 people staring, looking at me, all who were more senior than I was, about somebody that I worked with getting promoted. So needless to say, I got nervous. And I was holding a piece of paper in front of everybody, and I started shaking so bad I couldn't even really read what was on the paper, and it was just absolutely horrible. And I was completely embarrassed that I didn't even prepare, and I felt even worse that I had let this other person down, of which he was looking for me to perform well at. My boss, of course, afterward, he was like, you should have read, you should have prepared, properly, you should have rehearsed, you should have asked other people. And he coached me and let me know all the things that I did wrong. And I thought that was going to be it. No, not even 2 weeks later, somebody else was getting promoted. And what do? He goes, you are doing this. So what did I do? I was like, I'm not repeating the same mistake. So I read and I read and I read and I read and I rehearsed and I rehearsed, and it was like 35 seconds. But I rehearsed it so many times for those 35 seconds because I didn't want to be a disappointment for somebody else. I read over and over and over and over and over again. And then when it came time for it, I executed it, and I said everything was good. I said, so, you have to take the time in order to prepare yourself adequately. You can't just rely on your natural skill and instinct and think that that's going to be okay. In his case, going back to the present story, I told him, I said, you don't have the natural innate charismatic abilities of some of the other people in this organization. I said, but that is okay. You have to realize that's your weakness and overcome that. But you also have to be comfortable working in uncomfortable situations. I said, so I'm going to continuously push you out of your comfort zone and make you uncomfortable until you get comfortable with it. And it's not going to be fun. You're probably not going to like me for it while you're going through it, but you'll probably thank me for it later on down the road. I had to make sure that I coached this person, and then when it came down for the event, it went off very, very well. The individual who's getting promoted had a great time. His family had a great time. Everyone that was there was so thankful that his immediate leader took the time to say all the nice things about him, and it really made it more memorable. And he probably, in my opinion, gained a lot more respect from other people who knew him. And it was like, wow, he actually did a really good job. I didn't expect that because he's not that type of guy. Now, some of you are saying, I've never been in a place like that. I'm telling you, you'll get to a point where somebody will, call out people and be like, hey, you're really not that person, but you overcome it, so I respect you more for it. So what I'm really getting at is, as leaders, I realized I had two choices that I could have done. So this is the real life application of, if you're a born leader or you're a made leader, and how you can extend yourself as a leader, right? So as leaders, we have two options when we encounter junior leaders who either lack the natural ability or who are just falling short. So we can dismiss them and sideline them, marginalize their impact on others, but that hurts them the most in the future because they're going to go to an organization where they're going to be expected to perform at a certain level, and they're not going to be able to do that. And so it hurts that other organization that they may potentially go to, and that would be my fault if I did that. Or you as a leader can recognize the inexperience and the lack of development and push them out of their comfort zones, but you got to shape the conditions for them to be successful. For example, make them draft a concept of what they're doing. Make them rehearse, make them prepare more than they usually would, because that's what it requires them to perform at a higher rate. And then when they do become successful, positively reinforce that, even if it is subpar to what you probably would have expected, but still reward the positive aspects of what they achieved, because for them that is a significant achievement. For you it might be like, oh, no big deal, but reward the positive aspects of it, because in the future you're just going to have to prepare them more to overcome what they didn't do before. And believe it or not, other people are going to look at you and go, that is a reflection of your leadership, because you didn't get that person to where they needed to be. So wrapping this up into something I hope you can take away from this episode is, in my opinion, leaders in general are made. Great leaders are those that have innate natural abilities followed by others pouring in and developing those people. Would you as a leader encounter someone who isn't where they should be, take it upon yourself to continue to push them into their discomfort zones, but give them time to prepare and shape them for success. If you decide to dismiss them because they lack experience you think they should have had, then it's a clear sign that their previous leadership failed them. And don't be a continuous, perpetual problem of failed leadership. You need to provide them the experiences and the opportunities so they can grow to the next level. I take this back to what my, one of my first bosses said. Hey, opportunity is knocking and it's kicking you in the ass. So you need to get after it. I want to thank you for listening to today's episode of Tim Stating the Obvious, where we talked about embracing our discomfort zones. Before we end, I would like to ask if you could please subscribe, comment, and share this podcast to provide some feedback and help generate discussion on this subject. If you haven't visited our Patreon site, I would love it if you would stop by there and check it out. And that way you can see how you can be a part of the show and keep the content coming. I had to delete 5 of our previous episodes to make room for the next couple of episodes coming up. And lastly, I am very interested in hearing about your stories and experiences to keep this discussion going. This platform is about you and how we can grow and share ideas together to get better every single day. Our links are out there. They're going to be, in the metadata of this podcast, so you can take a look and click on it. And I hope that you can contribute to this discussion so we can really take it to the next level. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for coming by, and please come back for another one. I'm Tim Staten, stating the obvious.